I'm gonna finish. Don't leave it. Just leave it. You're gonna break something.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. And let's start with the blessing for Torah study. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asos divrei Torah. So, as we kind of we're Torah in these weeks and these days lead between, obviously between the High Holy Days and as we lead up to Simchat Torah, it kind of feels like I've had multiple conversations with people today. They're not even sure what day it is, what day of the week it. Oh, it's Shabbat, right? And Shabbat is coming, and so I feel like the Torah portions and what we study also get kind of smushed together, but in a good kind of way. And it's a little disorienting, but it comes back every year, and we will come out of this. So I want to start with the Torah that's inside all of you. And that is, I just want to ask you a question. We're in the days of awe, of course, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And I want us to think for a moment about that phrase. We don't really talk about the phrase so much because we're gathered on Rosh Hashanah and we're gathered on Yom Kippur, but this period in between is connected. So what does it mean to you when you hear days of awe?
Well, I'm thinking awe is of God. And I want to, first of all, compliment you all on the amazing, awesome, in the literal turn of the word, services that you gave us. And they were really awesome for me. Some brought tears to my eyes. And we're also focusing on who's going to live and who's going to die. Stoning is probably not on the agenda, but a lot of the other things are. And it's a time of reflection on life. And I was knocked out the next day. And I was imagining how you, the clergy, must feel exhausted.
Talk to us next Friday, the day after Yom Kippur. But it's a different, but perhaps that sense of knocked out, I hope, was from doing what we're really being asked to do, right?
Yeah.
Thinking about these really big, kind of scary or awesome things.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I live streamed it, but so I was able to watch Wilshire services and then go to Temple here because our services were later.
Right.
But I felt I can say the same thing Susan said. It was amazing. And I don't know how you guys do it.
Yeah.
I was exhausted just thinking about it all. But all the things that we think about during High Holy Days that we may forget to think about the rest of the year because it's not being pointed out to us. I haven't stopped thinking since Rosh Hashanah Day about what's going on in our lives.
Fantastic. Well, that's good. And it's hard. I want to dive a little more deeply into this notion of awe. And what is these days of awe? What does it do to you? What does it mean to you? Mona, go ahead.
And I want to say that this time period every year, but even more this year, it's a time to actually step away from our lives and return to the same words, contemplation.
Mm-hmm.
Return to God, return to some principles, and step away from the world, which is at best unsettling.
So where's the awe in that?
The awe is in hope. The awe is in God. The awe is in community and being together and putting some historical perspective that we are part of this wonderful community and we celebrate together. And that is the awe, because it takes us out of our individual paths.
Great. Stepping out of the normal, just the routine, getting
Right.
off the habit trail, as we like.
So I felt empowered and light and awe, and I hadn't been feeling that.
So, okay, great. So I guess I want to again, and this is kind of turn back to everybody. So to you, Mona, that when you think about awe, it is I'm thinking about, you said empowered and light.
Yeah.
What does awe evoke in the rest of you? Merle, go ahead.
A stronger sense of respect,
Mm.
but where we're all together somewhere. Everyone has a different lifestyle, different feelings about being there. So I think respect, but also respect that we're listening and we're involved in whatever the conversation is from services.
So perhaps it is the piece, whatever was kind of brought up in you during services. And again, thinking about the days of awe that it's carrying through during this period between the holy days. Does anybody else have another association when you think about awe? Brad, go ahead.
Yes, I'm on a different wavelength because I feel fear. This is blessings and curses, and there are lots of curses this time of year if we're not on the right track. So awe to me has a component of fear.
Fantastic. Yes, thank you for adding that. I mean, there's no value to it, right? But that's a really important piece of it. And we're going to look a little bit more at that as we go through our Torah study today. So thank you for adding that to the mix.
Rabbi?
These pieces are important. Natalie, hi.
Yeah, I always agree with Brad, usually. And I 100% agree with Brad. Awe, when you are in awe of something, that goes beyond humans, goes beyond even an explanation of the word. It's a very powerful word that and there is definitely, in my opinion, fear. There's a lot of fear that I have noticed learning about the Torah, meaning you have to listen to God, you have to do these things, or you're going to get punished. And in this time of year, when people go and sit in the synagogue, they're sitting and hoping that God is going to be pleased with them, that they will live to another year, that things will be good, on and on.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's what our liturgy brings to us, right?
Right.
When we stand and in front of the open ark and we say Avinu Malkeinu, we're pleading for it.
That's right.
And when we say Unatana Tokef, the words that literally lay out that so much is beyond our control, it is an acknowledgement of that sense of awe, the way you're defining it.
Rabbi?
Sukasa, hi.
Hi. It's interesting that we read the story of creation on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. I would say that's an experience of awe.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So it doesn't happen in every synagogue, by the way, but it's not unheard of at all to do the story of creation. Even to reflect back on creation at all is right. And when you think about literally that first bet that starts out the whole Torah, it is awesome to think about how that even comes to be.
And I'm sorry for the noise out here, but the other thing is that people are talking about fear of what's going on in the here and now. And I have a feeling that the holy days, the days of awe, are on a higher plane, a longer time frame. It's the history of the Jewish people.
Oh, that's beautiful. And therefore maybe the reminder that we're running a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. This is really what we're seeing is really yes to everything. And we're painting out kind of the full picture of what awe is supposed to be. So Cindy, go ahead.
The fear, I just keep thinking about it. A few years ago, in this time period, I received a diagnosis of an aggressive cancer. And thinking like, oh, God's going to decide by Yom Kippur if I'm going to make it through or not. And it was actually during COVID, so there wasn't that community support. We were live streaming and just thinking like, okay, well, I got the diagnosis and God's going to make a decision next week. And fear is a good word.
Right. So days of awe, you can understand that in such a personal way. It just kind of gets you in the gut. Yeah, that maybe I'm guessing, I don't know if this is a safe assumption, that before that experience in that year, you probably didn't.
I always assumed it'd be okay.
Mm-hmm. Or didn't personalize that
Right.
language so much. Merle, go ahead.
Yeah, we have a very dear friend who was sent home after 8 weeks in different hospitals and doctors who can't diagnose her problem and everything. It's a long story, but she was sent home with under hospice care. And I have to tell you, I wake up every morning and look at my phone to see if there's some horrible text message from her daughter or husband. And that's the fear I'm going through right now. As I sit there, even in services, and wonder, I wish she could be with us and in services and not have to live stream where they're local.
Yeah.
But that fear can be very personalized.
It can be so personalized. And what is so amazing to me, and what I think speaks so powerfully to this season, is that in Hebrew, when we talk about awe, it is that real gut punch fear. And it is, the comments we heard at the beginning, the sense of uplift and community and connection. And it's all consumed in this one word. And this word actually shows up in our Torah portion multiple times, or this idea, because the word for fear or awe, well, we know the days of awe are the Yamim Noraim. Yamim are days, Noraim is of awe, but the word for awe in Hebrew is yirah, right? Yirah. And that shows up multiple times in this Torah portion. So knowing that it is this kind of multi-faced idea, which is on the surface level, they're two very different understandings. There's amazement and beauty and reverence, and there's fear, legit fear. But when it does, you're all adults, and so having lived life, we all understand that if you scratch just a little bit below the surface, those two things come together very very easily. So excuse me, I want us to look at a few of the places where this comes up in this week's Torah portion and see what we can gain from it, not just about what's going on in the Torah, but for our own days of awe as well. And just kind of as context, our Torah portion this week is Vayelech. Excuse me. It is often combined with the one that was last week, but this year they're separated. And we're almost to the end of the Torah. This is what I was saying at the beginning about the calendar and the Torah readings. They kind of get disorienting and mushed together until we get to Simchat Torah. So we're almost there, not quite yet, but here we are. And so let's take a look. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 31. Vayelech Moshe, that's where it gets its name from, and Moses went and spoke these things to all Israel. So remember, Moses has now been recounting and retelling for the majority of the book of Deuteronomy now. Here's the next chapter. He said to them, I'm now 120 years old. I can no longer be active. Moreover, Adonai has said to me, you shall not go across yonder Jordan. Don't, excuse me, God has said to me, Moses, and I'm telling you, the people of Israel, the Israelite people, I've already been told I can't go there. It is indeed your God who will cross over before you and who will wipe out those nations from your path, and you shall dispossess them. Joshua is the one who shall cross before you, as Adonai has spoken. Adonai will do to them as was done to Sihon and Og, kings of the Amorites, and to their countries when God wiped them out. Adonai will deliver them up to you, and you shall deal with them in full accordance with the instruction that I have enjoined upon you. Be strong and resolute. Be not in fear. Al ta'artzu. Be not in fear. It's that same word yirah is in there. Be strong and resolute. Be not in fear or in dread of them. For it is indeed your God, Adonai, who marches with you. God will not fail you or forsake you. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing there. Where's the awe? Let's unpack this fear or awe that is he's challenging the people, right? Be strong and resolute. Do not be not in fear. Do not be in, or we could translate it as be not in awe or in dread of them. What's behind that? What's he expecting the people to be feeling, given what he just said? You're one of the Israelites. Moses comes to you and says, reminder, God has told me I'm not going there with you. But, right, I'm old, I'm not crossing over. And, but God is going to be with you and to deliver you along with Joshua. What's that awe? Or let me rephrase the question. Why does Moses feel like they can hear that challenge in that moment, what he's just said? What are they feeling?
They're feeling, they should understandably feel afraid, because battle is not a pleasant thing, and it's dread, it's dread. So
Susan, can I just stop you? So the fear that the dread and the fear would be about the promise of the battles that lie ahead for them.
Yeah, and Joshua was a leader in battle, but they're going to have to do it. So, be strong and resolute was a phrase that I think was used a number of times. And I think Menachem Begin, and there's a book out that I read that used that phrase and used it to describe several Jewish leaders from ancient to medieval to modern times who used it successfully and to help the Jewish people. So how can you be strong and resolute? Well, Moses is saying God will be with you. So that's the awe.
Okay, so I just to unpack this particular, and we're going to look at multiple uses of this.
Okay.
So we're on to the book, right? But so you're saying there's legitimate fear about the battles that lay ahead, perhaps some uplift or I don't know what word to use at the promise of God being with them. So it's a mixture. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
How can you be strong and resolute when you're facing a fearsome situation? And one could carry that to a fear of death with disease or something. But
sure. But there, so you're saying though that what's behind their sentiment probably in that moment is a bit of both meanings of the word.
Yes.
Great, great. Penny, and I saw you had your hand up.
Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Right, the word yaro, yirah, also has a different root to it, and it means to hit a target, a certain something that you want to achieve. And the whole idea was that I think the Ten Commandments was kind of like a tryout. They got a map to conduct themselves a certain way and to have a relationship with other people. But the results were up to the people actually to see if it works or not. So if the map that they got in the Ten Commandments was missing the point, so it's a causative thing. It caused other things to happen that shouldn't have happened because that particular person, because it was meant to be for each one, not just in the air. If it didn't hit the mark, if it didn't achieve what that person promised, and he didn't fulfill it, then he's going to feel the consequences. Like we have it.
So, and that's scary, but also empowering. And that's
Exactly. It gives them the permission to act upon their thinking and upon their feeling, but they should also consider if it really hit the target, if it will achieve what they wanted to achieve.
Right.
So it's a giving people power, yes, to actually execute what they feel, but the results, they cannot be promised. It's up to each person what he used it for, that ability and that particular experience that he's been given the permission to do,
Lest we
or
feel
to think, or to behave. If it didn't achieve the target, the person itself is the one who is going to be hurt, because the whole idea was to learn people to live with each other and care for each other and think about the consequences. And a feeling, it's not something that you can teach. It's something that everybody has to be, or is, I'm not saying has to be, but is in charge of personally.
Right.
So I'm just trying to say.
So that brings in the human agency element of this.
Exactly.
Which is a critical part of obviously the teshuva process, but really when we're sitting and thinking about the days of, I mean, we are in the days of
please.
As long as we always have to remember our own piece of this as well. So oh, you just froze. Brad, go ahead.
Yeah, Rabbi, the text, if you go back to the text, it talks about fear of being forsaken. And I think that fear of being abandoned. And you know, that word forsaken is such a powerful word. Do you know what the New Testament says was Christ's last words on the cross?
I don't.
The New Testament says, Father, why have you forsaken me? This idea of being forsaken, the idea of being abandoned is part of our fear.
Right, right. Which comes up, by the way, thank you for pointing that out. This is not the first time that fear has shown up in the Torah, right? We're at the end of the Torah. There are many examples, but the first thing that comes to mind is, of course, the golden calf, that fear of being abandoned. And so the people turned and did what they felt they could in their doubt. So thank you for adding that. Okay, so the people are feeling, there's an acknowledgement from Moses that as the people are getting ready to cross over without him, from Moses's perspective, he's saying, don't fear, right? Be not in fear or dread, but instead be strong and resolute. Okay, that's instance number one. Let's keep reading. Then Moses, right? So he's already said what's coming next. They've got Joshua. So then Moses called Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel, be strong and resolute. So the word for fear isn't back here yet, but that phrase, be strong and resolute, chazak ve'ematz, that comes back. Be strong and resolute, for it is you who shall go with this people into the land that Adonai swore to their fathers to give them, and it is you who shall apportion it to them. And it is indeed Adonai who will go before you. God will be with you and will not fail you, or, there it is again, Brad, forsake you. Fear not and be not dismayed. So there's the word fear, lo tir'ah, right? Lo tir'ah, again, days of, it even rhymes in English, tir'ah and days of awe, right? So now Moses is telling Joshua, let's stop on Joshua for a second, just briefly. Moses is telling Joshua, be strong and resolute, be not filled with yir'ah, fear or awe, maybe, I don't know. What's Joshua's perspective here? How's he feeling that he needs to be given this same challenge? You're Joshua. Imagine what's going through your mind in that moment. If I were Joshua, I would be afraid.
Yeah.
I would have the fear that I do it wrong.
Right. And guess what? The stakes are very high. Moses has led the people for 40 years. This has been the promise of the covenant since Abraham, right? And now it's like, just bring us home, right? I would be afraid, but also think about, in a position of leadership, it's not just shake in your boots fear. It's also, there is very much a sense of awesomeness. I hope, and we know he did, appreciate the awe of this position of leadership. Plenty of fear though, right? Okay, so who's been given the warning and the challenge? The Israelite people, Joshua, but we're not done yet. It keeps coming back. So verse 15, Adonai appeared in the tent in a pillar of cloud, the pillar of cloud having come to rest at the entrance of the tent. We know that the pillar of cloud has been the symbol of God's presence as they've been wandering through the wilderness. God said to Moses, you are soon to lie with your ancestors. I'm going to read through this kind of quickly. It's beautiful, but I want to get to our focus. You're soon to lie with your ancestors. The people will thereupon go astray after the alien gods in their midst in the land that they are about to enter. They will forsake me and break my covenant that I made with them. So here's God saying, this is about to happen. You're Moses. That's got to be pretty, talk about loss of control. But God is acknowledging it as well. Cindy, go ahead.
I was just thinking that Moses is to die at 120 and Sarah died at 120. Is there any significance in that number?
I mean, the significance came afterwards. So now we say at somebody's birthday, you should live to 120. The significance is really, I think, the short answer is it represents a full life. They have had a long, full life. And think about how much in this case, Moses has seen with his eyes in 120 years. So good question. It just is representative of a full life. Okay, so God's saying this is going to happen, Then my anger will flare up against them, and I will abandon them, and I will hide my countenance from them, and they will be ready prey, and many evils and troubles shall befall them, and they shall say on that day, surely it's because our God is not in our midst that these evils have befallen us. But I will keep my countenance hidden on that day because all of the evil they have done in turning to other gods. This is not a super optimistic outlook here. Therefore, write down this poem and teach it to the people of Israel. Put it in their mouths in order that this poem may be my witness, my God, against the people Israel. When I bring them to the land flowing with milk and honey that I promised on oath to their fathers, and they eat their fill and grow fat and turn to other gods and serve them, spurning me and breaking my covenant, and the many evils and troubles befall them, then this poem shall confront them as a witness, since it will never be lost from the mouth of their offspring. For I know what plans they are devising, even now, before I bring them into the land that I promised on oath. That day, Moses wrote down this poem and taught it to the Israelites. So this is, you feel the angst of what is going on and the sense of powerlessness, certainly Moses, but God saying this is going to happen. God is saying this is going to happen to Moses. But remember, all Moses can do is to write this final poem. Tune in next week for the final poem. But who has something to do with this, knowing that it's coming? It's Joshua. Go ahead, Brad.
Well, this passage really confounds me. Is God saying that I will no longer be an imminent God for you? I will no longer be physically present to you. I will be in text going forward. I'm in text. I'm in a poem.
That's beautiful. I mean, we could do an entire session just unpacking that question. I would say that God is saying, yes, I'm going to be hiding, right? Not gone. It's kind of like the story of Purim. God's not gone. God is hiding. There's this notion of God's presence being hidden. But when God is hidden, or not present, the cloud isn't going to be there anymore, the people have to step up, right? There is something going on here about the transfer of not power, Torah, and responsibility to Jewish life that is being transferred here. And that is powerful and awesome. So maybe God is going to be in the Torah based on these verses. I love that interpretation. But certainly God's lessons are going to be in the Torah or in this poem, right? That's what God is telling Moses to write down. So whether God is fully present, like all of God is in the poem, I would say probably not, but certainly God's lessons are. Does that answer your question? Or give an answer? Again, we could spend an entire hour unpacking that really great question. Okay, any other thoughts before we move on? And I know that I can't see everybody's face, so a screen. So Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, I like that what Brad raised, and this has always been troubling to me. In the beginning, be strong and resolute, conquer, and then there's this curse or something. Then you know what? I know what's going to happen. It's a great land. You're going to prosper, and you're going to grow fat and lazy, and you're going to turn against me. So God here is a realist, because that has happened numerous times, and it continues to happen. I think they say in the Torah, there's more fear of losing God when you're satisfied and wealthy and and have everything. And God always reminds in the Torah, when this happens, remember why you are wealthy and content. So,
right. The prayers for gratitude are not as natural to human nature as prayers when we need something.
yes, and if we think that Deuteronomy was written later after some severe losses and God's face was hidden, then here's some explanation for it. You know, you turned away from God, and this is why it's happened. So,
And yet, this is, I mean, even just on a literary level, this is fascinating, right? God is saying that to Moses, this is going to happen, right? Of course, it's God. And Moses, I mean, I just think about how Moses must have felt in that hearing this, that he's completely, this is going to happen. It's a fait accompli, but he can't be there to intervene as he was before. But what can he do? He can write it down, put something in writing, put it in front of them. And it is a matter of really this very awe-filled, I believe, awe-filled moment of the transfer of ownership of Jewish life to the people. There's no, they won't be able to go crying to Moses anymore. That's just not going to be the reality. And guess what? The Torah sets up all the conditions. And Penina was talking about the 10 Commandments. Well, guess what? That's the way things ought to be. And real life happens and human beings screw up. And then what? And that, I think, is what is being laid out for us in this Torah portion, which is why it is such a powerful Torah portion for the days of awe, literally. Okay, so let's keep reading a little. There's just a little bit more of this section. So God says to Moses, go write it down. Moses didn't delay. Verse 22. That day, Moses wrote down this poem and taught it to the Israelites. And then the transition is happening. And God charged Joshua, son of Nun, Chazak ve'emetz, be strong and resolute, for you shall bring the Israelites into the land that I promised them on oath, and I will be with you. So another pep talk, right? Or challenge. Be strong and resolute. Or of good courage, sometimes it's translated. And even Ezra, there's so much commentary on these verses, but on these words, he says that means that now that you know that God goes with you wherever you go into battle. So you're not going to be, this is a reminder. You can find strength knowing that you're not alone, that God will be with you. Okay, so I just wanted to bring a couple of more contemporary commentaries. One from my teacher, Rabbi Mark Margolius, who is on the faculty at the Institute of Jewish Spirituality. He says the Hasidic master, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, is known for his famous teaching, Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar me'od v'ha'ikar lo lefachid klal. It's especially famous if you go to Jewish summer camp because it's the song. The whole world is a very narrow bridge. And the main thing is there are different translations. This one says not to fear at all, not to be overwhelmed by fear. But he says Rabbi Nachman's actual recorded teaching is far subtler and closer to our experience. Rather than use the Hebrew word lefached, to be afraid, he uses the reflexive form lehitpached, to cause oneself to be afraid. For Nachman, courage is not about denying or repressing fear. Rather, the fundamental principle of courage is choosing not to frighten ourselves beyond the fear we already experience. Fear is unavoidable, perhaps even required. Courage involves moving forward despite our fear and not exacerbating our anxieties. So I realize this is not the same word as, yirah, but that is his take on fear in general, that we all live with a certain amount of fear. But his warning, he's saying that really the warning here is not to be overwhelmed by the fear we add to the fear that already exists. So there's something internal going on here. And then I want to turn to Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks. He says, at the end of his life, Moses recognized one great failure of his leadership. He had taken the Israelites out of Egypt, but he hadn't taken Egypt out of the Israelites. He had changed his people's fate, but he hadn't changed their character. He now realized that for this to happen, there would have to be a different kind of leadership, one that handed back responsibility to the people as a whole, and to the elders in particular. So long as there is a Moses performing miracles, the people do not have to accept responsibility for themselves. In order for them to grow, Joshua would have to engage in participative leadership, encouraging diverse views and listening to them, even if it meant going more slowly. So, Rabbi Sacks was saying, similar to what I was saying, that there's a transition in the leadership that is inevitably going to happen here. So, Moses had to be told, don't be overwhelmed by your fear. The people had to be told, don't be overwhelmed by your fear. Joshua had to be told, don't be overwhelmed by your fear, be strong and resolute. What does that say to us? Here we are, we're much more in a world of Joshua than in a world of Moses as Jews. And we're in the days of awe. Here we are, we're in the middle of them. And we are supposed to be feeling this sense of, I'll use a contemporary word, agency, right? What do we do with that? How does that feel? Let's go back to the original question about yirah, fear and awe. This is a new kind of leadership, owning leadership. How does it feel to you right now to be the owner and the mouthpiece of Judaism? That's really what he's saying here. The people are going to be owning their Judaism and their relationships with God. We're living in a very fraught time to be Jewish. How does that feel? What does awe look like when it comes to that? Susan, go ahead.
Well, I think I would turn also to Rabbi Nickerson's sermon for the High Holidays, where he is reaffirming, he suggests we reaffirm and celebrate our Judaism. And he was giving various paths for this, because this is an exceedingly trying time for us as Jews and pro-Israel Jews. So I think I loved the sermon, and I thought it was a way forward. The contrary to that, I saw a Woody Allen movie last night, and here's a guy whose
Perfect for the days of awe, by the way.
overwhelm him, and he makes them worse than things really are. That passage made me think of Woody Allen.
Yeah, don't pull a Woody Allen.
So I think there's something to take, be strong and resolute, and perhaps lead you out of these fears and anxieties.
Right. Does anyone find that maybe an impossible challenge?
Certainly a difficult one. It could be overwhelming. And that's also one reason, a purpose of rabbis and therapists who are good to help you in that direction.
Right. Because what Nachman of Bratslav said is, we're on the bridge whether we like it or not. So we have to just step forward, even if it is one very tiny step at a time. And at the same time, I want to go back to what many of you said at the beginning about what awe feels like in these days of awe. And before we turn to the fear answer, don't forget those first answers that came, right? There is this sense of belonging and being part of something so much bigger than ourselves. And that is also, what that does to the inside can be awesome, right? The fact that you can reference Rabbi Nickerson's sermon is because we're not all abandoned. We're still part of this beautiful thing called a Jewish community that has structure. But even Rabbi Nickerson is not Moses, right? So he can't, everybody has to own it for themselves. That's our goal, to help it feel not so overwhelming.
We have to find our way.
Right. And when do we do that? Always. But
Always.
these days of awe in particular are designed to help us really focus in on just that. But it is always. But these days are a reminder. And that's, again, to Yamim Noraim, the days of awe and fear. We feel very exposed during these days. And that's just the way it's supposed to be. It's not a bad thing. It's just very different. If we're taking it seriously, it's very different from the rest of the year when we put up our guardrails. So this phrase of be strong and resolute, and that in response to this idea of fear or yirah, which is also awe, comes up in one other place during this Shabbat, but also it's worth pointing out that it has been coming up, whether if it's been on your radar or not, for the last 4.5, almost 5 weeks. And that is that during the month of Elul, the month leading up to the High Holy Days, and through Rosh Hashanah and into the Shabbat, Shabbat Shuvah, the Shabbat between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, there's a special psalm that is supposed to be read every single day. It's Psalm 27, and there are maybe a couple of lines that might sound familiar, but I want to share with you. I'm looking at the beginning and then the middle of this psalm, because it speaks to exactly this topic. So, okay, Psalm 27 from the very beginning, a psalm of David. It actually just says of David, Le David, Adonai Ori, God is my light and my help. Whom should I fear? Mimi ira. Yira, it's the same word, or right, days of Noraim. Whom should I fear? Right, if God is my light, God is my help, whom should I fear? God is the stronghold of my life. Whom shall I dread? When evil men assail me to devour my flesh, it is they, my foes and my enemies, who stumble and fall. Should an army besiege me, my heart would have no fear. Should a war beset me, still I would be confident. This is a song that we've been singing, so maybe you've heard it. Only one thing I ask of God, only that do I seek, to live in the house of Adonai all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of Adonai, to frequent God's temple. To frequent God's temple. And then we skip forward, and the psalm says, look to Adonai, chazak va'amatz. Same phrase, there it is again. Look to Adonai, be strong and of good courage. Be strong and resolute. Oh, look to Adonai. So what is the Psalm saying about fear? I'll put it back a little, I can make it a little smaller so we can see, maybe not. So we can see the whole thing. There we go. What is the Psalm saying about fear and awe and its relationship to being strong and resolute or of good courage? It's saying, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you. It's saying that if we have faith in God, if we have faith, we find that capacity to tolerate the fear and ideally to appreciate the awe even more. And then to have the strength and sense of being resolute to march forward. So that's it. We only ask, achat sha'alti, I only ask one thing, to be with God and to have God with me always. That's the idea of the psalmist. If only we have faith inside of us that God is with us, which means all that stuff that God said to Moses and Moses said to the people actually had to believe that if we have that faith, we will be able to appreciate the awe and have the strength to move forward. How do you feel about
Rabbi?
it? Yes, please. Because my question is, how does that sit with you?
I think that for any of us that have faced a challenge or want to make a change in our life, we have to say we feel the fear, but I'm thinking of Cindy, what she shared. She felt the fear, but she acted as if, and she went forward. And that's the only way. Feel the fear and go ahead anyway. I mean, fear is not an excuse or a reason to not act.
Right.
You know, if you think about a soldier going into war, I mean, that's something I think we can all visualize. The Israeli soldiers going into Gaza, oh my God, the fear they must have. But yet they're acting as though they're not afraid. And that's the only way you can conquer your fears, is to act as if.
Just fake it till you make it, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
Till
that's
you
why I think
yourself
we go back.
believe. Till you yourself believe.
Right. And yet, I mean, I'll just put out there what I'm guessing somebody will jump in if they're bold enough to do, but I'll just say it. There are plenty of people who would say, wait a minute, that's not enough. It's not my faith in God is not going to keep the enemies away. Right. But then my response is that then what does having faith do, however you define faith? I think to your point, it gives us the strength to put the next one foot in front of the other and just march forward, because what other choice do we have?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. So, I think a lot of people think of faith as disconnected from reality. And I would offer, maybe as a days of awe kind of offering, that if we're willing to think about faith, maybe in a bigger kind of way, it's having that strength to know, and this goes back to what it said before, that just we're not alone. None of us is in this alone. We're in it with community. And if you are a person who believes in God, then you are, you're not alone because God is with you as well. But we can't be paralyzed. We can't be paralyzed because the world doesn't work that way. There's too much that we need to do. Any other thoughts? Does this get anybody's insides a little torn up?
Rabbi, it's where I started and why the holidays are so important to me. It's so much going on in this time of year hits, and it's that we have courage. God is with us. I mean, having faith and courage to do what you need to do to go forward with whatever it is. This is like, this bolsters. And awe is that, you're not alone and you have someone, this large power, who believes you can do it. You read those words, you sit in synagogue and you hear and read those words. And it's between you and it's just myself and God. And it's like, well, okay, God believes I can do this.
Right. And we sit in synagogue and it's us and God, and we sit in synagogue in community.
Yes.
And my favorite phrase about sitting in synagogue is we sit alone together.
We sit alone and we're together.
Alone together.
Alone together. And the power that has of anybody going through something where they're dealing with it with themselves or just a small family unit, this really kind of brings in all the troops to help you.
Right, right. Because the alternative, I guess, is when we go through life with our heads down, just moving forward, we don't feel the extremes. And your fear is about the extremes on both sides, coming to terms with the extremes on both sides. And this period, these 10 days, put us smack dab in that. And so if you're exhausted, as Susan said at the beginning, you're exhausted for good reason. Brad, go ahead.
Well, I'm with Cindy and Sue. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of the bone marrow transplant that I had for early stage leukemia. Yesterday, second day of Rosh Hashanah. And God was there in the hospital, in the doctors, in my family, in the nurses who cared for me. But I'll never forget, at one point I turned to my doctor and I said, feeling somewhat helpless, what can I do? And he said to me, it's very simple. It's one word: push yourself. And so I guess my point is, at a point where I was feeling so helpless, I realized that there was a part that I had to play in this, and that it was a partnership.
Well, that realization, thank you for sharing that. That realization is exactly what our tradition and this Torah portion is pushing us, is trying to get us to adopt during this time. And this is why I think it's not by accident that it's at this time of year that the leadership passes. There's these final preparations, leadership in the Torah from Moses to Joshua, which is really more of a democratization of Jewish life, or life of faith, maybe to say, right? And so thank you for sharing that. You had to ask the question, and then that meant you were ready to do it. Susan.
I want to thank Brad for sharing that. And it's very powerful. And I remember you've been on these Torah sessions for a while. There was a time, I think, when you had pillows or something when you were recovering. I remember that I thought, boy, that's courage. And I love that. And your contributions. I had a lesser but similar situation. A few months ago, I had a stroke, and fortunately, my husband saw that I was acting strangely, and I got to the hospital in the window of time. But I was thinking, like, thank God for these for the ambulance driver and the technicians and the miracle of the medications that I came out of it. So, and I love these meetings where I can exercise my brain somewhat, those cells that are still left, and community. So thank you for sharing, and thank you, Cindy, too, for sharing.
Thank you all for sharing. I would simply maybe to bring it back to this moment in time. Thank you for your stories, and point out, I mean, what you're talking about is gratitude, right? But to be able to have the gratitude, I believe we need to be able to sit in our awe. Otherwise, again, we're walking through life in our tunnel. But to
And
see
Brad's push.
and the push. Yes. Take it to when you think you can't move forward, you move forward, you push, and somebody else can't do it for you, to your point, Brad, right? Just push. That's the way it has to be done. And it's hard and it's scary and it's exhausting, but it's life. And here we are in this period of time when we're supposed to sit in all of that and feel it and let ourselves be exhausted and scared, but also filled with awe, so that we can, when we come through this, we can continue to use your doctor's word, Brad, we can continue to push. That's what this new year, we should be empowered to do. So with that, I wish you all
I like that.
meaningful rest of your days of awe. Gemar Chatima Tova, you should be inscribed for goodness, but not only that, right? We don't wait for just it to be inscribed for us, because we're players in this as well. So Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Shabbat Shalom. Take care.